And as promised, it's time now to bring you Sigaram Gold. Satya Movie's lavish 1967 production Kavalkaran features an ensemble cast headed by Mgr, Jayalalitha, Sivakumar, and that's a very, very young Sivakumar, M. N. Nambiyar, R. S. Manohar, Nagesh, S. A. Asogan, V. K. Ramasamy, Kalapati Singaram, and Ganitha Kannaya, together with a guest appearance by Pandari Bai. Now, the film was quite different from the formulaic approach of Mgr's other films, and while still catering for the masses, it had rich characterization, great depth to the script, and a very engaging story. And of course, the story dealing with much more than just a romance and much more than just action, quite a complicated story of crime, family drama, family emotions, and with a bit of romance thrown in as well. So Kavalkaran, a very, very unusual mix for Mgr. Now, it was during the filming of Kavalkaran that Mgr was shot. Now, contrary to what appeared in the South African press at the time, he was not shot on the set of the film. And that said, there are many versions of what happened on the night of 12th of January 1967, and even the most established publishing houses have published conflicting reports. Now, the version presented here is compiled by a series of books and interviews by Mgr's personal driver and bodyguard, the doctor who tended to both parties at the hospital, as one of the nurses who was on duty that evening. Now, Mgr had just come out of the bathroom when Emma Radha arrived at his house to see him. Emma Radha walked up to him, and Mgr greeted him with a smile and then asked what was wrong, as Radha had a strange look on his face. Radha then whisked out a gun, pushed it against Mgr's head behind his ear, and pulled the trigger. Radha then turned the gun on himself, firing twice, one near his own temple and another in his throat. Amazingly, of course, both of them survived. A wounded and bleeding Mgr managed to walk and asked his driver to place Radha in the car, and they both went to the hospital together. Now, on arriving at the hospital, a flurry of personnel came to Mgr's assistance as they saw the blood, but Mgr waved them away and said that he was okay and that Radha needed urgent attention. Now, the bullet lodged in Mgr's throat permanently damaged his voice, and this worsened in 1973 when the bullet, which was left there because of its precarious position, moved and had to be surgically removed. Now, getting back to what happened on the night of 12th of January, Emma Radha was, before we get to that, so if you recall, and I think this was covered by the local press as well, Emma Radha was tried and found guilty and sentenced to 5 years in prison, of which he served 4 years and 3 months. Now, before we get to exactly what happened on the night of 12th of January, let's place the events in context. So again, I'm going to be presenting to you some facts, and I'm going to leave the rest to your imagination. Not really your imagination, but your ability to put things together. So the first thing that you need to understand is that Emma Radha strongly opposed the political views of the DMK. Now, although he was a close friend of Mgr, he was a very, very strong opponent of the DMK. Now, he had just financed Mgr's Petrol Kanpulaya and was planning a second film. At the time of the shooting, it was at the peak of campaigning for the 1967 elections, where Mgr was a popular candidate. Now, according to the eyewitness account, Emma Radha had tears in his eyes when he arrived at Mgr's house that evening. Mgr continued to refer to him as Radha even immediately after the shooting. Now, at the trial, there were reports that the DMK had planted people to commit perjury against Radha. The guilty verdict brought an end to Radha's vocal opposition against the DMK and left him with a serious financial crisis. Now, those who were not present at the shooting came up with many theories about how and why the shooting happened. But only Mgr, Emma Radha, producer Vasu, and Mgr's driver were present when the incident occurred. So for me, personally, what I found quite interesting is, if someone came to shoot me, why would I still be concerned about their health? Because remember, Mgr was conscious throughout, and when he went to the hospital, actually refused medical attention and ordered the doctors and nurses to treat Emma Radha first, continuing throughout this ordeal to refer to him as Radha. And why, of course, would Emma Radha come there with tears in his eyes? If he had produced a film with Mgr, he clearly was not his enemy. If he was planning a second movie with Mgr, he was also clearly not an enemy. Now remember, we're speaking about a state and situation that was and still is highly politicized. So the actual truth about exactly what happened may never come about. And I've been watching interviews featuring Emma Radha's children, and even they don't seem to have the correct view the correct perception, because all they know is what appeared in the press and what emerged in the court trial. Now, these are the facts that I've presented to you. The interpretation, of course, is left to the individual, but as I said, it is one of those great unsolved mysteries of Tamil cinema, and I think with the death of MGR and Emma Radha, that secret went together with them.